something changed here. Something will never be the same again here. And it took that huge effort. It was a wonderful showcase of ability. And we also experienced the phenomenal power of the integration, the social solidarity that we all felt as everybody got right behind our special athletes and they showcased their talents, and the volunteers showcased what happens when we work with each other to bring out the best of each other. I actually think it was, and